I wish you very welcome to this result conference, all of you. If I understand correctly, we are over 220 registered participants from 18 countries. So that is really great that we have this interest for our project, which is about bridging gaps for the adoption of automated vehicles. That is the acronym BRAVE. And let me just show you today's program. We share the morning together up to noon, and we will have a short welcome here and then go into 3 different blocks where organizations involved in BRAVE will present findings from that on the subjects that we have here. And then we will also have a discussion at the end. Of course, this is a web meeting, so you are probably familiar with this type of housekeeping rules by now, but anyway, it's always good to remind ourselves that we should mute our microphones, shut off the camera, and questions and discussion in the chat, please. My colleague Florent Anon from Next Move will watch the chat and channel questions to the presenters, and we can also use the chat at the end of our session in the discussion part. We are curious to know your view on a couple of things that we will use a tool called mentee to pose a couple of questions, and therefore I would suggest that you already now log on to mentee.com. You can do it on your mobile phone or on the computer, of course, but it's a good thing to already now. And I should also remind you or mention to you that we are recording this event, so if you have a problem with that, I guess you have to choose what you do. Okay. With that, I go back to the agenda here. We will have a short welcome note from our project officer, George Saros from the European Commission, and then we go into the more result-oriented part of the conference here. So with that, I think I'll leave it to you, George, to share a couple of words with us.
Thank you, Ingrid. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I would like to thank you, Ingrid, for giving me the opportunity to provide a few opening remarks at the final event of BRAVE. Since the project actually is approaching to its end, it's a good moment, I think, to take stock of achievement and share the lesson learned, I mean, with other participants and also with other stakeholders who attended this final event. And I think that the organization of the final event actually offers a great opportunity to this direction. Just for those who don't know me, I mean, my name is Giorgio Saros, and I'm a project officer at the Transport Research Unit of the Executive Agency of the European Commission, INEA. And I'm looking after projects in the sector of automated road transport. So I'm sure that with many of you we have met before in other occasions as conference or other projects. In order actually to reach a large deployment of automated vehicles, as you know, a number of complex challenges need to be addressed and solved at various levels, at societal, human, regulatory, economic, and also operational level. So please allow me to identify where exactly actually BRAVE project fits to this overall picture of the ART domain. So we all know that automated vehicles will be accepted by end users and society only when they will be deemed easy to use and fully reliable and safe. regarding the planned maneuvers and their execution. So moreover, the automated driving systems should be resilient to both system and driver failures, and guarantee, of course, sufficient reliability and robustness in each and every situation, especially in real traffic condition. Especially for level 3 automated driving, where actually Brave is looking at an effective interaction between the driver and the automated vehicles actually plays an important role. And therefore, a key challenge is to ensure safe vehicles handling with reduced driver attention, in particular during the transition period, where there will be interactions with surrounding environment, and also with other road users such as traffic participants, pedestrians, cyclists, or vulnerable road users. In that frame, it is widely understood that the successful deployment of CAD depends largely also on the societal benefits it can generate, and on, of course, uptake by road users. And the Brave project and its objectives fits very well to this European ambition in order to make the desired impact on society's targets. In this regard, societal aspects and user needs actually is one of the 7 clusters identified in the SICAM partnership that is under establishment. I'm sure that most of you are aware that the European Commission, together with the relevant stakeholders, actually they formulate, and now it's under, of course, establishment, the SICAM partnership. And I know that your project coordinator, Ingrid, and some, of course, other partners are deeply involved in the activities of SICAM partnership, and more specifically in this cluster. And I guess that, of course, the project results are shared with other members of this cluster. So I encourage all actually to stay tuned on the developments of SICAM partnership, and of course your expertise is vital for the definition of the EU research agenda of the coming years. This agenda is not solely defined by the European Commission, but now with the creation of the SICAM partnership, it is co-created with all relevant stakeholders of the domain. So if you're interested in shaping, co-shaping actually the research agenda in the different clusters that have been identified, please join the different working groups. As I said before, there are 7 clusters in this SICAM partnership, and one of them, of course, fits very well to the Brave objectives and concept. An important aspect which is useful also for the Commission, actually it is related to international cooperation and links with other initiatives outside the EU through the interaction you had with international partners of the consortium, or with the synergies that you have created with related projects running in other continents. So it would be useful actually to highlight also some takeaways of this cooperation if applicable. Just a couple of points more to mention here. I would like to remind you that the 3rd edition of EUCAD conference, EUCAD is European Conference on Connected and Automated Driving, will be held virtually from 20 to 22nd of April this year. You can find more information about the conference on the eucad2021.eu. And during this conference, 6 plenary sessions and 12 breakout sessions will be organized. A first version of the agenda has been published, so if you want, you can check the website. And of course, a breakout session linked to also to Brave's objective is scheduled. So please stay tuned, as also the registration will open very soon. As a last point, there is always an open call, and this is actually a good opportunity since I participate to this final event, as many experts on these fields actually attend this event. So there is always an open call to seek for new experts who can participate in the evaluation of proposals. So please check in the funding attendance portal and register your profile there. We always encourage people, new, fresh minds to register to this database. Because based on this, on the registration and the profiles available in the database, we select the most relevant experts who can, of course, evaluate the submitted proposals, if of course you don't have any conflict of interest. If you already have a profile there, please make sure that your profile is up to date. I think this is all from my side. I don't want to take more of your time. I know that you have a lot of things to present today. So I wish you a successful final event, which I hope will stimulate the interest of all participants. And thank you, Ingrid, again for the invitation. And if you agree, I'll give the floor back to you.
Thank you very much, George, for this, I think, very encouraging and inspiring contribution to our event. So let me just say a few words more about our project before we jump into the presentations of results. So who is Brave indeed? Well, this is part of the persons who have been involved in the project, and as you can see, we have been 10 organizations involved, 10 partners from 7 countries, which you see here. We have been working since the 1st of June in 2017, so that means that we will run into our the end of our 45 months by end of February this year, and the budget is about 3 million euro. What we have aimed at doing with Brave is to see what influences the road users' adoption of highly automated vehicles and how that can be increased, and if it is possible to define any gaps for that acceptability, and then what do we do about those gaps? How can we bridge them? So we wanted to check out and develop some solutions, and then also to see how they can reach a wider application. And you will see that we have 3 blocks then of presentations that address these areas. So we will share our results regarding acceptance gaps, both identifying them and addressing them through developments and demonstrations, and then how to make sure that it is not just theory that is developed, but how do we bring the kind of encourage that solutions are put on the market. I'll just share our objectives with you as well, because that kind of matches these blocks of results and our aims. So our objectives was to do multidisciplinary studies, to develop innovative HMI paradigms, and to enhance ADAS systems that are existing right now, automated driving assistance systems, by new predictive algorithms so that they would be better to predict. In particular, we looked at VRUs, but also vehicles, and to evolve validation protocols, regulation, consumer testing as a way to encourage actual market introduction of adoption enhancing systems. So that is what we aim to do, and we did not work in isolation. There have been sister projects, as George mentioned, Interact, ADAS and Me, and Trust Vehicle are 3 projects that we have been cooperating with, addressing similar but not exactly the same approaches of adoption. Before we go into the first presentation, now comes the code for the mentee. So let's just check here, because we are curious to know what you think about level 3 automated cars. Will they make roads safer? If you punch in this code here and mark your question, yes, no, or neither yes nor no, I will take up the live here so we can see what we think, we as the audience. Just give it a little while to collect your answers here, because that is sort of one of the parts of the adoption and acceptance. Kind of few no's. Okay, well, I think this, I have another question for you as well, but we can see that the majority thinks that at least not no. So the majority actually is quite positive, which is nice to see. Okay, let's see if we can take, we have another question for you. And now let's check if you are a pedestrian and you stand at the zebra crossing, you're approaching a level, you have a level 3 automated car. Who would you trust more? The human driver, the car that is in automated mode, or both equally? Has changed a little bit. It was the human driver dominated in the beginning, but still is the preferred one that we would trust. Okay, interesting. Oh, we could wait for longer, but I think we have to carry on actually. But it's keep this in mind that we thought they would make roads safer, many of us, and that we trusted the human more than the automated vehicle. Because now we will also see what the surveys on acceptance that we did with population and experts in the project, what the outcomes were of those. So I'll leave the floor to Bernhard Schraut from the Institute for Empirische Soziologie, IFES, to give this presentation.
Yes, thank you. Okay, let me try to share my screen that you can all see. Okay. Can you see all the slides? Can you just give me a quick? Yes, thank you. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ingrid, for giving me the floor, and dear ladies and gentlemen. Well, in the next 50 minutes, I'd like to present then some of the main results from our international surveys that we conducted in Brave about the acceptance of the conditionally automated cars, and both surveys were the core of research in our work package 2. And in my today's presentation, as I mentioned already, I'd like to present you key results from first the Brave Stakeholder Survey that was mainly conducted by our Swedish partner VTI. And after that, I will talk about a couple of results from Brave Population Survey, which was then carried out with IFES in the lead. So I start with the Stakeholder Survey, and Here also the underlying idea of BRAVE was to consider the concerns, needs and expectations from all parties affected by the market-wide introduction of the conditionally automated cars. And let me give a side comment in the beginning. I will abbreviate conditionally automated cars with CACs or CACs in the following presentation. So the stakeholder survey should collect considerations on CACs on an institutional level. And later on, we will also learn about acceptance of CACs from the perspective of the road users then. But first then, let me briefly outline the chosen methods for the stakeholder survey. And in preparation of the stakeholder survey, we conducted 15 experts interview, and the statements by the expert were then used to design the questionnaire for the online survey. With the recruitment of the respondents was performed out via personal contacts of BRAVE partners or invitations spread out and in the social media. The stakeholder survey was conducted in March 2020, and we received a final sample of 78 stakeholders from 14 countries. So as you see, the sample size is rather small, so I suggest that the findings should be interpreted exploratively as spotlights. Okay, so here are some results from the stakeholder survey, and here I present the top 3 mentioned expectations, concerns, and needs from the perspective of the stakeholders. So in the questionnaire, we had 8 statements dealing with expectations regarding the introduction of CACs. And the respondents then could answer on a 5-point scale from not expected to all and to strongly expected, which was similar then for the measurement of concerns and needs. And according to the top 3 expectations, we see that stakeholders anticipate a slow but steady introduction of CACs, and they also expect CACs to adhere to traffic rules and to be first introduced on the highways. We also asked about concerns, and the top 3 concerns of the 11 statements in the questionnaire were a quick response in case of an emergency, if that is possible. Another concern was the mixed traffic of automated and manually driven vehicles and the overestimation of the abilities of the assistance system. And finally, stakeholders were asked in this survey what is needed for a successful large-scale introduction. And again, we display here the top 3 mentioned needs. So at first, the stakeholders express a direct interaction between the technology and the human driver is needed. And further on, we also see that stakeholders consider precautions on data privacy and data protections also as necessary. With these results from the stakeholder survey, I will now continue also with key results from the BRAVE population survey. And we'll give first some insights on our basic idea and the methodology again. Well, in the preparation of our population survey, we found that studies on acceptance of automated vehicles most often focus on the perspective of potential users or passengers. While, however, the introduction of CACs will affect all road users, like pedestrians as well. And so we decided, also corresponding with the BRAVE idea for the population survey, to focus on the acceptance of CACs from the perspective of road users. So let me briefly outline the survey's methodology before we continue to the results. For the preparation of the questionnaire, we conducted a literature analysis and also focus group discussions. And on this basis, we've developed a multi-topic questionnaire that dealing with questions on acceptance and trust and technical considerations, as well as ethical and legal implications of the introduction of CACs. 1,000 respondents were surveyed with an online questionnaire in each of the 7 BRAVE countries. We conducted the survey in December 2019 to February 2020, and we used for the recruitment of the respondents an online access panel. Okay, so with these details in mind, let us proceed to the results. Well, first I will turn to questions on acceptance of CACs, and later on I will also present some more questions of preferences on eHMIs. And it is important to know that in the course of the questionnaire, respondents were asked to provide us with their main transportation mode. And the respondents were then asked to answer yet now this and the following questions from their point of view as a pedestrian or a cyclist, PTW rider or a car driver. In one question that is presented on this slide, road users were asked whether they think that CACs will make roads safer, the same question that you had before, or a similar question. In the diagram that you see on the left-hand side of the slide, the first row shows the results for all road users, and in the 4 rows below, we see answers from the distinct road user groups. From the first row, we see that about half of the respondents agreed or disagreed with this statement and so expect an increased road safety. On the contrary, only about 20% of the surveyed road users disagreed or strongly disagreed to that statement and do not expect improvements. Differentiated by the distinct road user groups, we see that PTW riders and cyclists more often expect improvements. We also analyzed in our survey the differences between the countries, and here results reveal that Spanish and also Slovenian respondents show more positive attitudes towards CACs than the respondents from other 5 brave countries that were involved in the survey. And in the second item that I'd like to present on the road users acceptance, that deals with the communication between the CAC and the road users. And here again, a rather positive attitude appears. About 45% of the surveyed road users agreed or strongly disagreed with the statement and expect an easy communication with the CACs. Among the road user groups, we differentiated PTW riders and the car drivers more often than cyclists and also the pedestrians assume an easy communication with CACs. And we also see again that regarding the respondents' country of residence, the Spanish and the Slovenian respondents report more positive attitudes towards the CACs. Another question on the road users' acceptance was as follows. As a pedestrian, cyclist, PTW rider or car driver, I think that conditionally automated cars will cause problems for me and other road users. And here, in contrast to the other positive assessments before, 4 out of 10 surveyed road users state that CACs will cause problems for them and also other road users. And only about 30% expect no additional problems when CACs are on the road. We also have another view at the road user groups. Here, again, PTW riders and cyclists most strongly expect problems when sharing the road with the CACs. And regarding the countries, we also see that road users from USA and Germany most often state the concern of the emerging problems. In the questionnaire, and given this specific traffic situation in the questionnaire corresponding to the main transportation mode, we also asked the road users about their trust in CACs, for example, then with this question that you already know. In such a situation, whom they would trust more, a human driver, a CAC in automated mode, or both equally. And well, having in mind again the rather positive answers before, we see that slightly more than half of the surveyed road users would trust a human driver more than a CAC, and this is rather equivalent, I would say, to our mentee question. And only 16% in our survey of the respondents would trust a CAC more. The analysis show that road user groups who place the highest trust in CACs are the PTW rider and the cyclists. So let me give another 2 questions that are on the use of AE-HMI. Both refer to the communication with road users outside the automated vehicle. So the first question was, Should a conditionally automated car indicate to other road users that it is in automated mode? And the results we see on the left-hand side here again are rather clear, and a large majority is in favor of a visible signal if the car is in automated mode. And in the diagram we displayed the differences between the countries, and the results vary between the countries but are nevertheless rather clear in each of the involved countries. A further question on the use of eHMI at CACs deals with the issue of how a CAC in automated mode should indicate that it gives way at a pedestrian crossing. In this question, you need to know that road users could select multiple answers. First of all, we see in the table that only a small number of about 8% think that in such a situation there are no signals necessary. And as you can also read from the table, the most preferred indication modes expressed by the road users were flashing light signals at the car and a prolonged deceleration phase. Well, in the interpretation of these results, we thought that a combination of signals might be a solution, especially as respondents on average gave more than one preferred option. So to sum up all the results I've presented here, we learn from the stakeholder survey that the stakeholders expect a long phase of mixed traffic with vehicles at various SAE levels. And we also learned that the biggest concerns of stakeholders refer to the takeover phase in emergencies, the data protection, and also cybersecurity of the CACs. Well, regarding the road users' acceptance of CACs in the population survey, we would conclude that road users' acceptance is positive, but not yet widespread, as we see, that a considerable lack of trust in CACs becomes visible. We also conclude that road users favor eHMIs at CACs. And we conclude that we see that most results considerably differ between road user groups and the countries, which should be addressed also in future research and development. So, okay, for further results on both studies, I'd just like to refer to the published deliverables, which are online on our project website. And with these remarks, I'm at the end of my presentation. I'd like to thank you very much for your attention. And now, interesting if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Bernard.
Yeah, we actually have 2 questions in the chat.
Okay.
Well, first question regarding the respondent and their knowledge regarding the technology and how confident they are with technology before responding. So did you check this in the survey? Did you make a review about this knowledge of respondents regarding technology?
Sorry, I have to read the question again because I skipped the first what you said, Florent.
Yes, the questions from the chat is regarding the level of knowledge of respondents regarding automation technology. Did we ask the question to respondents in the questionnaire, and did we review this aspect before synthesizing the results?
Yes, we've asked the respondents about if they know about the technology and also if they are keen on try out technical devices. So in this case, we also checked for that, and in multiple regression analysis, also we put them into also in the report to control for these questions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And just a quick questions regarding the respondents' age and types and gender. Did we study this? Are there any impacts on the results?
we see that so we considered the age of the respondents. We also considered age in the recruitment, so we do not have any major bias about young people in the survey or about older people in the survey. And yes, we have seen the age impact, that the younger the respondents, the more they favor acceptance of CACs, I would say, in generally.
Thank you. And with this, I give back the floor to Ingrid. And
Yes.
You can ask your question on the chat, and we will take that at the end of the presentations also.
Thank you. I'll take us back to the agenda here. Thank you so much, Bernard. Now we have an idea about acceptance gaps, and I think it was interesting to see that the mentee answers kind of were similar to what was found in the surveys. Now we will look a little bit on how we can address some of the gaps that we have identified. And first, we will look at prediction system, and this will be presented by Miguel Angel Sotelo from University of Alcalá in Madrid. So I give the floor to you, Miguel Angel.
Okay, thank you very much, Ingrid. I tried to set the audio on in my computer, so I hope everybody can see my slides now. Please let me know. It's okay?
Yes, we can.
Right, so I'm Miguel Angel Sotelo from University of Alcalá, and it's my pleasure to talk today about the predictive systems that we have developed in the BRAVE project in the context of advanced automated driving. So the first thing to mention is the general objective of the predictive systems. What is the goal? Why do we do this? What we want to do is to enhance current ADAS and automated driving systems by achieving better and faster reactions in nominal and emergency situations. And when I talk better and faster reactions, I mean in comparison with the average human reaction capabilities. So the first predictive system that we have developed deals with the capacity for anticipating pedestrians' intentions to cross a street. Like, for example, in this scenario, we see in the image the typical situation in which a couple of pedestrians are standing at the curve, looking at the oncoming vehicle in order to make sure that the driver is yielding to them before starting to cross. So the first thing to do is to identify the presence of pedestrians using deep learning computer vision systems. After detecting the presence of the pedestrians, we have to analyze the pedestrian faces and gaze direction in order to make sure they are looking for eye contact with the driver. This is a very clear evidence, very clear indication of the intention of these pedestrians to cross the street. The BRAVE vehicle anticipates these situations and slows down and yields to pedestrians appropriately. So second example of functionality is a lane change prediction system. In this case, the system detects a vehicle driving on the leftmost lane and the intention of such driver to swerve to the center lane along which the ego vehicle is driving. So this is what we call a cutting maneuver. The prediction is depicted by means of a red arrow. So this is a very typical example that we find every day on the road. So we conducted an assessment of performance of our predictive system that we have developed in the BRAVE project, in particular for the lane change prediction system. For this purpose, we created a dataset, the prevention dataset. Prevention stands for prediction of vehicle intentions. You can see the link to this dataset so that you can download the data and use it for your own research if you wish. So based on that, we conducted what we call the prevention challenge with 72 volunteers. The breakdown of those can be shown at the bottom of the slide in terms of gender, education, driving license, driver experience. So we presented 30 sequences, 30 video clips to each volunteer, to each of these 72 volunteers. So they had to signal by pressing a key whenever they believe a lane change is going to happen, if any. So after that, if they believe a lane change is going to happen, the system asks a second question to volunteers. They are asked to indicate whether they believe the lane change is going to be to the left or to the right. After that, a new sequence is presented and so on. So based on these results, we were able to establish a comparison, a comparative assessment between the BRAVE predictive system based on artificial intelligence and human reaction capability based on the results of our 72 volunteers in the prevention challenge. For the same accuracy value of 85% for the two of them on the same video clips, same sequences, same circumstances, we measured An average human delay of 1.08 seconds, a little bit above 1 second, while the Brave delay system was 0.66 seconds. So a major conclusion that we find here is that under these conditions, the Brave predictive system overcomes humans' anticipation in lane changes by more than 400 milliseconds. So I'm going to show you now a video divided in two parts that will allow us to better understand how the predictive system works. In the first part of the video, we're going to see predictions for lane changes depicted in red by means of arrows. In the second part of the video, we're going to see pedestrian crossing intention predictions depicted in red whenever the pedestrian position and orientation is considered to be critical. Otherwise, it is depicted in blue. The video is very much self-explainable. Let me All right, so everything has been implemented on the Predictive autonomous vehicle owned by the University of Alcalá. You can see the vehicle in this picture. It is equipped with the typical sensors, LiDAR, radars, cameras, GPS, and the like for autonomous driving. And the experimental validation has been conducted on a proving ground located at UTAC, the south of Paris in France. On this nice proving ground, you can see in this aerial view, using sophisticated materials such as 3D balloon cars, teleoperated platforms, and a pedestrian and cyclist targets, following EuroNCAP standards. In the next videos, you're going to see how these pedestrian and cyclist targets work, how they move when they are teleoperated, together with an overlay showing the pedestrian detection system that has been used in the Brave project. Okay, with this material, we conducted a number of use cases. I'm just going to mention those very quickly. On this table, you can see on the left-hand side the use cases devised and tested in the Brave project dealing with vulnerable users, 3 types of use cases with different configurations. On the right-hand side, you can see the equivalent EuroNCAP test. The same for vehicles, now in this case in green. On the left-hand side, 2 use cases for vehicles in the Brave project, only 1 corresponds to EuroNCAP on the right-hand side. This means that some of these use cases and several of their configurations have been specifically devised and tested for the purpose of the Brave project alone. So, as I said, very schematically, I'm not gonna stop on each use case. I'm gonna mention those. First use case dealing with pedestrian walking in parallel. The vehicle just overtakes a pedestrian while maintaining a safety gap. If the pedestrian stops and looks at the driver looking for eye contact, the vehicle will slow down and yield to the pedestrian. Here we see a pedestrian crossing from the sidewalk. In this case, if the overlap between the vehicle frontal surface and the pedestrian at the predicted point of impact is considered to be around 50%, the vehicle will slow down and yield. The same situation here, but much more challenging because the pedestrian is initially occluded from a parked car, so the vehicle has to perform an emergency braking maneuver. In this situation, if the overlap between the frontal surface of the vehicle and the pedestrian at the predicted point of impact is estimated to be 25% or less, the vehicle has to avoid the pedestrian and simply perform an automatic emergency steering maneuver. Dealing with cyclists, 2 configurations. The first one is simply to reduce and follow because there is no free space on the oncoming adjoining lane to perform an overtaking maneuver. In the second configuration, we believe that there is no oncoming traffic, so overtaking is possible. Talking about vehicles, we're going to see a video of this particular use case in a minute. This is a cut-in maneuver. A teleoperated white vehicle is merging the main street traffic on the highway coming from the ramp. So the Eagle vehicle, the autonomous vehicle, which is the black one running behind it, has to reduce velocity and follow. In the second configuration, we check that the adjoining lane is free. There's no oncoming traffic. There is no traffic of any type. So a lane change maneuver is possible in order to make things safer for the occupants of all vehicles. The final use case dealing with vehicles has to do with the management of intersections. A control vehicle enters the intersection, is the one at the top of the image. Then the Eagle vehicle, the autonomous vehicle, detects the control vehicle, modifies its speed to adapt to the trajectory of the other vehicle in order to pass in a safe way. In the second configuration, the autonomous vehicle detects or anticipates the intention of the control vehicle to turn right, so it can traverse the intersection, make it through entirely without modifying speed at any time. So let me show another brief video showing the maneuver prediction test that we conducted at UTAC. The white vehicle is a teleoperated one made of foam, so it is emulating a merging maneuver from the highway. The autonomous vehicle detects this maneuver as a left lane change and adapts a speed to maintain behind in a safe manner. The relative difference of velocity in this experiment was 40 kilometers per hour. The control vehicle was driving at 10 kilometers per hour, while the autonomous vehicle was driving at 50 kilometers per hour. And this is intended to emulate the real difference, 40 kilometers per hour, that we have on the road between merging vehicles typically driving at 80 kilometers per hour and vehicles on the highway that normally drive at 120. Same use case, second configuration. In this case, we detect the merging maneuver, check the adjoining lane. We see that it's free, so we can perform a lane change maneuver in order to make it safer and more comfortable for the passengers of both vehicles. So let me remark that this is quite a challenging maneuver. You can see it here, very last second maneuver, and you really need a prediction system in order to anticipate it. I will speak very briefly about the external HMI. The details of the design of the external HMI will come in the next presentation. Here we only talk about the possible implementation, and this external HMI is intended to inform other road users about the status of the autonomous vehicle. So we picked a turquoise light to inform other users that the vehicle is moving in autonomous mode. It is either starting, stopping, or in cruising mode, but it's in autonomous mode. You can see the light at the bumper of the vehicle in this slide. Similarly, the interface can turn green whenever we are yielding to pedestrians. So this is how it looks whenever this happens. All right, we conducted a demonstration last Friday, February the 12th on UAH campus, following the route in autonomous mode that you can see highlighted in blue on this slide, a route that goes through roundabouts, intersections, etc., real traffic conditions. So we, as I say, we conducted this demo with journalists from different media. All of them had the opportunity to take a ride on our autonomous vehicle and experiment the advanced functionality. The next video shows a summary of this functionality, which is basically the prediction system and the external HMI. So just let me play the video very quickly.
The final test of BRAVE project has been conducted by the University of Alcalá using Predictive, an autonomous vehicle equipped with multiple sensors such as LiDAR, color cameras, 4 radars, and differential GPS. A major feature of BRAVE is the external HMI, located at the vehicle bumper. A turquoise light moving from left to right indicates that the vehicle is starting to move in autonomous mode. A solid light is activated once the vehicle has achieved its cruise speed while driving in autonomous mode. Finally, a flashing light indicates that the vehicle is reaching its destination and is coming to a full stop in the next second. BRAVE's navigation, perception, and control systems have been designed to maximize safety and comfort, with a view to boost autonomous driving by increasing users' acceptance. BRAVE can predict the intentions of pedestrians willing to cross the street and looking for eye contact with the driver. When this happens, the vehicle slows down and the HMI is turned to green as a means to yield to pedestrians. The combination of predictive techniques and an external HMI has proved to be essential for increasing safety and comfort in an autonomous driving.
Okay, with this we come to the conclusions of my presentation. The first and major one is that prediction increases safety and comfort in automated driving. Let me highlight it. Second, artificial intelligence-based systems overcome humans' ability to predict lane changes by 400 milliseconds approximately, according to our experiments, and also it overcomes based on a state-of-the-art prediction techniques such as Kalman filtering and similar by about 800 milliseconds. If we want to extend these results to other scenarios such as intersections, roundabouts, etc., there is a clear need for larger data sets specifically designed for prediction. There are many data sets for semantic segmentation, classification, and the like, but very few for prediction. This is a gap that we have to fill in the scientific and industrial community. And last but not least, further efforts on standardization and regulation are definitely needed in order to incorporate these AI-based predictive systems in the automotive. With this, I reach the end of my presentation. I want to thank you all for your attention. Of course, there's much more to say, but time is limited, unfortunately. So I remain available for your questions and comments. I also provide my email address in case you want to continue discussions offline afterwards. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. Thank you.
Thanks much, Miguel Angel. Really good presentation. I think we have time for some questions, if there are any, Florent.
Yes, we have some questions coming in the chat. First one regarding the beginning of your presentation. Were humans more or less accurate than brave? It's not an easy question, but you made a comment regarding that. Were humans more or less accurate than the systems we developed?
You mean, I'm not sure to understand the question, Florent. Can you reformulate it, please? So, it's a comment or a question?
Yeah, that's more a question, but I assume that the question was on the accuracy of the systems we developed. Did we compare the results to human behavior and human capabilities?
Yeah, sure. This is what we did in the prevention challenge. We took 72 volunteers and we presented video sequences to them. They had to focus only on one vehicle at a time. And then we analyzed the performance of these volunteers in terms of anticipated time. I mean, all the quantitative results are deliverable, but I understand that in 15 minutes it's impossible to provide the details. Based on that, we measured this difference. And then we had been unable to compare quantitatively to other systems in the state of the art because there are not sufficient data sets to compare, to obtain figures, to measure the difference. And most systems provide a prediction of trajectory, but not prediction of intention. We are measuring here the intention to perform a lane change. So this is part of the gap that the scientific community has to fill. But yes, our conclusions is compared to human drivers to 72 volunteers on the same conditions, we have measured an improvement of the brake system of almost half a second for a little bit more than 400 milliseconds. We have not been able to compare with other similar systems in the state of the art because they focus on trajectory prediction, on a prediction of intention.
Thank you. Maybe one more question regarding neural networks. Do you think neural networks will be good enough to predict line changes? That's basically the idea in this question.
Yeah, I believe it. I am fully convinced it is the way forward. Now in the present, they already exhibit the marvelous and astonishing performance. They have been able to learn amazing things. Let me give you a very brief example. For example, in our prevention data set, there are lots of realistic situations. So one of the things we find out that the system was able to learn by itself is whenever you overtake, there is a vehicle running in front of you, and there is a truck on the rightmost lane. Whenever the vehicle in front of you passes the truck, there is a very high chance, very high probability that this vehicle changes to the right in order to leave empty the center lane. So this is something that the system has learned to anticipate based on the image that the system sees. It's not only geometrical information that we feed into the system, we feed also the image. So the system sees the blinker, see the lane marking, see the situation, understands the road that's seeing. So based on the experiments in this project, I would say yes, neural networks, convolutional neural networks are the way forward in order to develop this kind of predictive system.
Okay, thank you. I think it's time to move on to the next item in the agenda. Maybe Miguel Angel, you have other question in the chat. Maybe if you could answer it directly by writing.
Sure, I will.
Thanks.
Okay. Then let's get back to the agenda here, but we will actually, this is a good time to ask a question again. So if you now go into Mentee and put in this code here, 5902418, I will pull up a question here that is regarding external HMI. If you are a pedestrian, would you cross? Oh, did I even share my screen? I did not. Am I sharing my screen?
No.
No,
No,
sorry.
no.
Now I'm doing, I hope. You see a Mentee question now?
Yes.
Yes, very good. So again, apologies for that. If you punch in Mentee this code here, let's see your opinion about external HMIs. There is a automated car. Would you cross if the automated car has an external HMI and signals that it's safe to cross? It's quite dominated yes to that question. We'll wait until we have about 50. I thought it's always interesting to see. Well, no, will not catch up, I guess. So yes, we think that if there is a signaling, then we would cross. Interesting to see. I have another question for you as well, but we will do that later, I think. Let me just check here. Yes, I actually think we save that for later. We will now, since we talked about, we just had this question here about how we feel about external HMIs. Let us then see what work we did on external HMIs. And Ignacio Solis from VTI has led that work and will present it to us. Ignacio?
Yes, let me just share my presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, can you see the presentation?
We see it, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you, Ingrid, for the introduction. My name is Ignacio Solis, and I am a human factors researcher at VTI in Sweden. And today I'm going to present an overview of the work done within Brave in the development of external HMI concept by using a multidisciplinary and a human-centric approach. So one of the main goals within Brave was to understand how automated vehicles should communicate with vulnerable road users, VRUs, especially in situations where traffic rules are not so evident or maybe not even available, and therefore both need to negotiate. And to contribute to this, we developed a vehicle to VRU interaction concept that incorporated VRU's requirements as a way to foster acceptance and trust and ensure traffic safety while also complying with the legal requirements and regulations. So to achieve these goals, we perform different tasks, like, for example, surveys that my colleagues from Work Package 2 just presented, literature review, user workshop to learn a bit more about VRU's requirements. And then, based on this information, we provided a list of general recommendations for the development of ergonomic external HMIs. And then we also came up with a potential external HMI design that I will show later. And then finally, we also conducted a simulator study to evaluate some of the user requirements that we detected. So in the state of the art, we collected information about different aspects that are relevant today. Like, for example, what information should automated vehicles present to the VRUs? And we found that things like automation mode, the vehicle intention, or providing recognition feedback to the VRU are some of the most important things. We also found that visual displays are most recommended for most of the functions, and auditory information should be used more for like warning. But then we also saw something interesting, and is that vehicle behavior can in itself be used as a way to convey relevant information to the VRUs. Next, we found also some information about location, and we observed that presenting information from different locations on the vehicle may be preferred to just one location. But it is also a good idea to present the information from locations that we know are more relevant for the VRUs, depending on the distance of the vehicle. And finally, we observed that colors in traffic are very much regulated. So this implies that colors should not only meet the user requirements, but also meet the legal requirements. And this is not an easy task. But we have seen in the literature there is an agreement on the use of turquoise color for automation mode. But there are other functions, like, for example, frontal braking lights are not that clear. Okay, let's move on to the user workshop. The aim of this user workshop was to complement the quantitative data obtained in the population survey that you have just seen in the two presentations ago, and by adding more or collecting more qualitative information about the perception and the way that participants, the way of thinking of the participants. So in this workshop, it was conducted by my colleagues in Fraunhofer, and it included 6 adults, 3 men, 3 women with different ages and different backgrounds. And in the first stage, the users were given 5 different use cases that illustrated situations where negotiations between automated vehicles and VRUs are foreseeable. Like, for example, a pedestrian that is jaywalking, a left turn, situations where there is more than one VRU, and also situations where there is a limited visual contact between the automated vehicle and the VRU. And then for each of these use cases, the participants indicated what information they would like to get from the automated vehicle and how they would like that information to be transmitted. And then in a second stage, subjects were provided with material to visualize their ideas of possible interfaces that they would like to see in an autonomous vehicle. Great. So from the results obtained in the population survey, the state of the art, and the user workshop, we came up with a list of general recommendations, which I will summarize now. The first recommendation is that the external HMIs should not guide the behavior of the VRUs, because this brings safety and liability issues. So in order to negotiate space, it's better that the vehicle just indicates its status, like it is decelerating, for example. Then the vehicle must show the automation mode. This is a user requirement based on different on the population survey, state of the art, and so on. And this should be shown via frontal interfaces, and optionally on the sides and at the back. As I said before, the visual modalities should be used for most of the functions, and auditory should be reserved for warnings. And it's important that these warnings are not artificial, but they are sounds that are familiar to the VRUs, like just a standard horn. And then in situations where there is limited visual contact between the automated vehicle and the VRU, the participants in the user workshop, they suggested that maybe the automated vehicles should project lights on the road that indicated this maneuver, But these lights shouldn't be mistaken for zebra crossings. That's an important thing, because that could invite them to cross. I will show you this concept in the next slide. Then the movement of the vehicle is a very relevant source of information for pedestrians. And therefore it needs to be integrated in the external HMI strategy. And finally, it is very important to use vehicle to VRU concepts that are consistent in the automotive industry to avoid potential confusions when interacting with vehicles from different car manufacturers. So, okay, now I'm going to show a video where you will see an interaction between a pedestrian and an automated vehicle equipped with an external HMI that is based on these general recommendations. And this design is just an example out of the many designs that can be created out of these recommendations. I think I'm gonna jump to another here because this is in YouTube. I can share the link on the chat later on. I hope you can see this. So you can see the vehicle is showing the automation mode with the turquoise color. And now it's indicated that it's decelerating with the purple frontal braking lights. And finally, it's providing recognition feedback to the pedestrian. And now you're going to see the same video, but from the driver perspective, because we wanted to show you the recognition feedback from inside a little bit closer. I see that some people can't see the video. So here, okay, I can read on the chat. I can see, maybe I can try to share this video. Can you see it now? This is a bit jumpy. Okay, nobody's seeing the video, I see on the chat. Okay, okay, now it seems to be working. It's a bit jumpy and it worked better with fewer people, but the idea is that the vehicle first shows a turquoise color indicating the automation mode. Then it displays a frontal purple light indicating the deceleration, and then a recognition feedback to the pedestrian, which is using the icon of an eye. So yes, but what I'm going to do is share the YouTube link on the chat so you can see it later with more time. In the video, you will not see these other two features. One of them is the emergency audio signal, and another one is the what I said before is the reverse signal projection. Is this projection that the vehicle present or display when it's gonna drive from some confined place where there is little contact, visual contact between the automated vehicle and the pedestrian. Okay, so let's move on now to the simulator study. And in this study, we investigated one of the most consistent user requirements that we detected through the project, which is the integration of the vehicle behavior as a part of the external HMI strategy. And more specifically, we focus on the deceleration moment of the vehicle. And an interesting question is, how do we do that? Is it okay to just present an external HMI message and a deceleration at any time, or should we integrate it somehow? So what recent studies have shown is that explicit information, that is the display, and implicit information, here I refer to the vehicle behavior, they are not unrelated. Actually, they are related. They affect each other in different directions. So, for example, these studies have shown that pedestrians tend to trust less explicit yielding messages if the vehicle is driving like too fast, or if it shows some kind of too aggressive decelerations. So in our study, we focus on the role of timing. So that is how the moment at which the automated vehicle decelerates and or presents its intention could affect pedestrians' comprehension of the intentions of the vehicle and how could affect their crossings and not crossing decision times. So we designed a study in a pedestrian simulator where 29 participants interacted with 45 automated vehicles in an ambiguous crossing situation. And then the vehicle could decelerate at a far or rather close distance from the pedestrian, and it could yield or not. And in the non-yielding conditions, the vehicle could also no decelerate. And then in parallel, the vehicle communicated its intentions via a very simple display on the roof that remained black when no information was presented. And actually, in some conditions, it remained black all the time. And then it turned blue or yellow to communicate non-yielding and yielding intentions, respectively. And as you can imagine, this external HMI is not based on any of the identified user requirements, because the goal of this test is not to validate or to test the external HMI design by itself, but just to focus on the effect of the timing at which the informations are presented. So all participants were trained with this display before starting experiments. And then as dependent measurements, we asked the participants how clear the intention of the car was on a scale from 1 to 5. And we recorded their crossings and not crossing decision times. So for crossings, they only had to start walking. And for not crossings, they had to press a button on a handheld controller. So let's go to some of the main results. In the yielding conditions, we observed that an early deceleration alone led to 39% of early crossings. And by early crossings, I refer to crossings performed when the vehicle was still in the intermediate zone that you can see on the figure on top. But then if only a yielding message was presented, then only 8% of the crossings occur earlier, which could show that people didn't really trust the external HMI. And then if the yielding message and the deceleration are presented early, then 76% of the people cross early. And interestingly, this is the only condition where the vehicle's intention was perceived as clear by most of the participants. Then if we go to the non-yielding conditions, we found that that no deceleration and that an early non-yielding message independently led to a greater comprehension and early decisions. So the main conclusions that can be drawn from this study is that in the yielding conditions, the HMI requires a deceleration to have an effect. Otherwise, it has a little effect. In the non-yielding conditions, however, the HMI has an independent effect regardless of whether the vehicle decelerates or not. But overall, early and congruent information increased the comprehensibility and led to earlier decisions. And the timing of the information affects congruence in the sense that an inappropriate timing creates periods of incongruence, which leads to confusions and delays in the decisions. So I will finalize with some general conclusions. So I think the contributions of Brave in this topic can be summarized as, well, we got now a deeper understanding of the VR use requirements. We have provided a list of general recommendations that incorporate those VR use requirements. And we have learned a bit more about the role of timing in the integration of implicit and explicit information. We will also like to point out some aspects that should be addressed in the future research. So for example, we need external HMI strategies to ensure that everyone can have access to the messages, can receive the messages, and that includes people with disabilities. But also that everyone can interpret the messages in the same way. And we also need eHMI solutions capable of directing messages to the right VRUs when there are more than one VRU. And next, we need many more scenarios to be evaluated, because we have analyzed different scenarios, but in the user workshop, but in the simulator, we only looked at one single scenario of just a straight road. And it is also important to learn more about individual related factors, like, for example, inter-individual differences. We have seen, even in our study, that people differ in some cases quite a lot. And this could be due to factors like age, trust in automated systems, cultural differences, etc. And finally, we definitely need to look more into behavioral adaptations. So in our study, we haven't looked at them yet, but I know that in previous studies, they observed that after certain trials, pedestrians tend to cross in front of a yielding message, even if the vehicle has not decelerated yet, which indicates that, in other words, the pedestrians are increasing their trust in the external HMI. This is And the danger of this is it could lead to what we call misuse of the HMI. Okay, and that's all from my side.
Thank you so much, Ignacio. I believe there are a couple of questions, Florent.
Yeah, they are. Well, first questions related to standardization. Maybe Alain will talk about this in the next presentation, but the question was on the standardization at European level for lights, for colors. So question is, where do we start? I think Alain will give some insight about this. I don't know, Ignacio, if you want to react.
I think my colleague Jean-Paul is probably in a better position to answer this question. So I'll pass it on to Jean-Paul.
So, hi, I'm switching on my camera. So this was the first question that I see, right? About the electrical versus combustion engines, or did I miss something? No.
That was a previous question regarding the necessity to standardize colors, lights, and signal regarding eHMIs. So what's the starting point if we want to provide recommendation with Brave? How do we start the work?
Yeah, I mean, the starting point, I don't know if I understand the question. We're not the starting point because there is already some kind of standardization going on. There is an ISO standard. No, I don't know the number by heart, but I can provide it if anyone asks. So there is a standard already. It's also, in some sense, it seems a preliminary standard because it was made like 1.5 years ago. It came out, and it was done based on the research that was there at the time. For example, one key element is what we have also reflected in the Brave concept, that we will not give guidance, but just show the vehicle status. So this is an example of how we took up the standard. But of course, based on this, we have done more research, and the research is continuing, and also not just in the Brave project, but at other places. So I think we will see an updated standard.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know if this answers the question.
We have another question regarding the difference between combustion vehicles and electrical vehicles. It will, of course, affect the relation between the car and the pedestrians. So did you study it in the pedestrian simulator study? Did you find any impact on this?
We didn't check. This is a very interesting question, by the way. But no, we haven't analyzed that. We are assuming, so to speak, the perfect scenario where it's a straight road with light, and the pedestrian is attentive and see how the vehicle is coming, so he or she can see whether the decelerations and so we are starting from this point, but as I said before, there are many scenarios, and this is one of them that should be addressed. We could also look into distracted pedestrians. How do you call the attention of people that is listening to headsets and that they are not really paying attention to the autonomous vehicles? So that's another way where auditory information is not being used in that moment. So this is a very interesting question for future projects. So
yeah, and we have quite similar questions regarding deceleration because it's in the study we talk about 4 meters per second, something like this, if I recall correctly. So which is a lot, which could be a lot in cities. So did we study the impact of this? Yeah.
I agree with that. We used that deceleration because it's based on previous work that have shown that going like a first hard brake and then slowly decrement the speed until full stop is like a strong cue for people that, okay, the vehicle has seen you and it's reacting. So it's a strong cue. So this is and it has been shown in another project, in Interact project, one of the sister projects. That this is a good cue to inform pedestrians that the vehicle intention is probably to yield. So that's the reason why we included, because it was useful. Having used a milder deceleration, like, I don't know, 1.5 or 2, then it could probably have not provided this information, this implicit information that we wanted the pedestrian to notice. So, but I agree that it feels a bit like that, but in the future cities. So we'll see. Okay.
Thank you, Ignacio. I think we are all set for the questions for this presentation, but you can still ask all your questions in the chat, and we will still have time at the very end of the event to answer all other questions if you have some.
Very good. So let me come back to you all, and as an introduction to the next presentation, actually have the final mentee question for you here. I believe you see my screen. Do you?
Yes.
Yes. So we have another question here. Would you trust another moving car if you saw the driver reading a book? And there are a couple of alternatives. Yes, if I know the car is in automation mode. No way. I wouldn't notice unless the car does something stupid. I think we, in general, are quite positive for automation if we know that it is in automation. It was the case in the earlier questions as well, which is in line with the surveys that we did, that there was a general positive sense, but also some concerns. Well, I think some would never trust a driver reading a book, but yeah, otherwise we are quite positive, or we wouldn't even notice. So thanks for that. That's interesting to see. That was just an introduction here to looking more into the internal side of the vehicles. We will maybe not discuss book reading, but at least the internal HMIs. And I leave the floor to Jan-Paul Leuteritz from Fraunhofer Institute, who has led this work.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. I'll just start to share my screen. Here we go. I would like to present some brief aspects of the Brave Interior HMI. First of all, the design space that we used for this Brave HMI overall concept have been defined at the beginning of the project. It uses well, a lot of elements that we already know, of course, from cars, such as the pedals and the wheel. On the wheel, we have 2 buttons in this case, which is something that is maybe a bit less common. 2 displays, one the speedometer display behind the wheel, and also another display in the middle console. What is maybe well, sound is the S on the doors. It actually doesn't have to come out of the doors, of course. It may come from anywhere. Most interesting thing is probably the H and the A that you can see on the picture. The H is the head-up display that intends to signal to the driver a connection between some information, what's happening outside the vehicle, and the display array that in the video later you will see in action. displaying status. We also have a steering wheel that has an LED strip. Actually, we didn't use this in the implementation you see later in the video, but it was also part of the concept. The outcomes of the work that Brave has done in this area are twofold, or let's see, they come in two different shapes. One is a set of general guidelines. They're very quick and short, and intended to be sort of the most accessible outcome of Brave regarding this interior HMI to everyone. So these guidelines are: if the system is in control, drivers do not want to be disturbed. This is a user requirement that we've collected in so many different ways that this is absolutely critical for level 3 automation. System transparency on what the vehicle does and why can enhance trust. The amount of information provided, for example, the car's intentions, should be adjustable depending on the driver's trust and experience with the system. To inform the driver about the vehicle and the environment, we should use visual feedback and auditory and haptic feedback. On the contrary, we should only use if we need to have the driver react quickly. So these are the very, very basics. And apart from this, we have done an HMI concept that is more detailed, and this HMI concept again is has some room for OEMs to sort of implement it in the way that they think fits their design space best. However, as we did one implementation in our driving simulator at Fraunhofer IAO in Stuttgart, we have a couple of use cases. I will not go through all of them. You will just see an overview here on the slides, and 6 of these use cases you will see in a short while in our demo video. So this is the implementation that we did, but I want to stress that it's not that we say it should always look exactly like this. We're trying to propose general interaction ideas that can be translated into different, let's say, outcomes that are just similar regarding the idea by OEMs. Sorry. One very critical point, of course, in the entire HMI concept is driver monitoring. I will not talk a lot about driver monitoring now. The driver monitoring system, the Brave concept, was developed by Universidad de Alcalá. So Miguel Angel is also here, and if you have any questions on this, I will probably pass it to him. But the basic is that in order to ensure that we keep our first guideline, which is not interacting with the driver when it's not necessary, we need to distinguish between a driver that is falling asleep and a driver that is doing a non-driving related task. So reading a book, as we just had it now on the Mentimeter. And this means that we are dealing with different distraction levels, and different distraction levels come with different warning strategies depending on sort of the severity of the situation. Okay, there is one question that I can answer right away because it was easy to read, and it's just for the moment. What type of driving monitoring system did we use? This is a driver monitoring system that is camera based, and it has an AI application that evaluates a lot of different parameters, mostly eye movements and facial expression movements, So to see if the driver is closing their eyes for some amount of time. So per close is the percentage of eye closure is the most important measure that is used, but there is a long list of parameters that is being captured there. So and what we do is from visual to audio and even to seat vibration, depending on the warning level that we need. Now it's time to see the video. I will. This is a video that is soon also published on the internet. Currently, it's not yet available there. I will pause the video shortly just to tell you what we're seeing. Here you see a picture of the driving simulator where it was implemented. In the first sequence, we see how the driver activates the automated driving mode. Once the automation becomes available, the display array below the screen indicates this option. The display behind the wheel then shows what to do, and the transition is shown in the display array. So the display array are these screens that are below the windshield. Once the transition is complete, an audio message confirms this. Oh, sorry, I think I stopped the video without wanting to. I don't know if anyone can hear the sound.
No sound.
Okay. Okay. So let's see it once without sound. I'll try to activate the sound, but last time it worked. That's the presentation effect.
Well,
okay, but let's do it without sound. So.
Yeah.
What you you'd have heard a lady saying automated driving is now active, and also an indication, a neocon when active automated driving was available. So when the screen just filled the very top bottom in the display array. The next sequence shows the vehicle in automated mode and overtaking a cyclist. The cyclist is marked with a yellow arrow in the head-up display, which means that it's a low danger level, so the vehicle does not expect any collision, and the driver does not need to intervene. Okay, sorry, something went wrong with the video. Let's see that here's the bicycle driver again, just to make sure that everyone saw it. There's the bicycle rider being marked. Okay. In the third sequence, the vehicle approaches a traffic light that is out of service. And this is a fictive scenario that we just invented to have the case that the automation conditions are suddenly not fulfilled. And this is why the display array shows this red color. So the driver needs to take over control, and the display behind the wheel shows that the driver needs to steer and confirm by pressing the buttons. And finally, earcons are played to warn the driver the driver does not react and the vehicle performs in AEB. And finally, another ear confirms the driver is back in manual mode. What happened to my video? In the next sequence, the vehicle is confronted with a suddenly appearing obstacle. So similar to the situation that you've seen in Miguel Angel's video. A vehicle is entering the motorway at a low speed and the system handles it by itself and the driver does not have to react. In the fifth sequence, the vehicle is in automated driving mode and wants to make a left turn. It grants the right of way to the cyclist ahead, who is going straight. Again, the VRU is marked with a yellow arrow since the danger level is low, and the driver does not need to intervene. In the sixth and final sequence, the vehicle is in automated mode and the driver is distracted using their mobile phone and not paying attention to the road scenery. A pedestrian is spotted who appears to be approaching the curb, but the sight line becomes blocked by a bus. The vehicle asks the driver to take over. The danger level of the pedestrian is raised to high, indicated by the red arrow. And note that in this case, the arrow actually shows the real position of the pedestrian since it's locked on the object in the simulated environment. In a real vehicle, the vehicle would probably only project a possible trajectory or show the area in which the pedestrian may be found. So this is simply an implementation glitch, let's say. So that was it. That was the final scenario. Again, the idea of these scenarios was to provide a large bandwidth of what are possible situations that a level 3 automated vehicle needs to deal with, so that we could propose solutions for these different situations. I will conclude my presentation with a very short glimpse of our final evaluation of the interior HMI, which is still ongoing. So I just got the latest numbers yesterday from our online survey. We actually wanted to test this in the simulator, but due to the lockdown, we were not able to invite external participants to our simulator in the last months. So we showed the same video that you've seen to our participants and asked them to answer questions online. We measured trust in the overall system and acceptance of both the overall system and the HMI. And we're generally seeing that we have positive results here, particularly the acceptance values are quite good. And that was everything from my side. Now I will turn to Florent to see which questions we could deal with now.
Well, actually, if I may suggest that we save the questions for after the next presentation, because Alain, you will need to leave at a specific time. So is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. In that case, let me, I always forget to share, but so we are entering the last block of presentation of our presentations, which is about how we have looked at what is the way that regulations and Euro NCAP type of consumer information testing can recognize the systems that we have been working with. So this is a task that Alain Piperno has led and will present to us. So Alain?
Yes, so hello everybody, Alain Piperno from UTAC-CERAM. UTAC-CERAM is the French testing center for all homologation type approval. UTAC-CERAM is also a Euro NCAP testing center. Do you see my slides?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thanks. So we have two added value in Brave project. Last year, about 6-week test, and during all the project link to working groups, regulation working groups, Euro NCAP working groups. We are in all regulation and NCAPs working groups. So the objective was, yes, to propose new protocols or protocols evolutions to these working groups. So we will see that we are in progress. We are making, yes, we have 6 proposals to these different working groups, 3 Euro NCAP working groups for AEB and AD working groups, occupant status monitoring working group, an HMI working group, that's for Euro NCAP. And we had also meeting with the GSR2, so with the TRL, which is leading the driver monitoring regulation task force. And we address the VMAD scenario working group. So we will explain that. So yes, last year in 2020, we did a 2-week test in February and 2-week test in July. So you can recognize the derivative prototype, is the black car, and all official targets. You know, the white car target, and the 2 pedestrian and bicycle targets. You know, in Brave we bought these 2 new targets, so the bicycle and the pedestrian. These 2 targets were developed in another H2020 project called Prospect. I can show you. Yes, so this is the Prospect pedestrian target. What is new is that this target has many articulations. He can turn his head, he has eyes. So yes, this target can be more representative and more detected by sensors. So as presented this morning by Miguel Angel, we selected many scenarios. Some were very successful, some were not so successful. So we can summary. The Brave vehicle show good results to anticipate, particularly for hidden pedestrian crossing and false positive scenarios. Also smooth driving, through anticipation, no impact and lower decelerations. So smooth driving. In Utaxeram, we are quite often testing prototype for level 3, and the Brave prototype was rather good compared to this other level 3 prototype. So the result is we built 6 protocols or evolution, and we proposed this. So we will see these 6 proposals. So the first one is to use the new target for pedestrian, more realistic, more anticipation through head movement, through head eyes. Second proposal, we built a new protocol. We mixed 2 official EuroNCAP scenarios for a new scenario. So an adult hidden adult crossing with 50% of impact, the point of the impact. We built totally all parameters, all assessment of this protocol, and I think it will be very good to challenge detection, anticipation. We think not all current vehicles can detect heads and head turning. So I think it could really challenge manufacturer and enhance safety. So that's we are very confident for this new protocol. And the potential safety benefit is 9% of serious accident. That is a pedestrian accident in France. So 9% accident could be reduced with such a new protocol. So the third proposal to EuroNCAP is a new scenario, mixing longitudinal and crossing. We also have very good results with the Brave prototype with anticipation. Yes, the vehicle can detect head movement, eyes of the eye movement and head movement. So in this test, it will be with or without the external HMI. We have two possibilities. And the fourth proposal is smooth driving. EuroNCAP is working to smooth driving since a few years, but with no assessment. So we proposed assessment for maximum decelerations, and Brave performance were a good indication for this assessment. Okay, so we make these 4 proposals to EuroNCAP AEB working group in October, November. EuroNCAP is launching a new working group, level 3 ALKS working group, so test for highway level 3. So we planned a third presentation in March. And of course, maybe middle 2021 for the new working group LKS. We also presented Brave preconization for driver monitoring on January, the 19th January. So we are in a good position for EuroNCAP working groups. HMI EuroNCAP working groups is in standby. So we hope the HMI EuroNCAP working groups will start again and will allow us a presentation. So interesting exchanging and proposals to EuroNCAP, and that's the same for regulation. For regulation, yes, Brave proposed recommendation and preconization for HMI and driver monitoring in August, last August, 27th August, to TRL, which is the leader of the GSR2 HMI task force. So the conclusion is that yes, TRL is studying Brave results, Brave recommendation, and we are all waiting for the official report of TRL 21st March. And also 4 testing protocols will be proposed to regulation working group. So these 3 are the same as for EuroNCAP. You know, so hidden crossing pedestrians, smooth driving requirements, car-to-car longitudinal near side crossing, and there is a 4th scenario. So false positive crossing vehicle, 2 configuration. The second image is turning. So we have 2 proposals. So, you know, 2020 was a huge year for regulation working groups because with the first level 3 regulation, you know, in July, there was a level 3 regulation called ALKS, only highway, only 60 kilometers per hour. But this was a huge work last year. Also, the AEB regulation is quite done. So 2 new regulations last year. So this year will be the good year to make proposals to regulation working groups. We address the VMAD scenario working group. So we hope to make presentation, you know, in the second quadrimester, so middle of this year. It's now too early. They're just beginning to build scenario and test for level 3. Okay, so my last slide is a summary of Brave dissemination to working groups, regulation and EuroNCAP. So we are confident that 1 or 2 or maybe 3 Brave proposal will be included. You know, it takes 2 or 3 years to be included in some regulation or EuroNCAP protocol, but we are confident also with the new dummy, the new pedestrian dummy with articulations to enhance anticipation and prediction. Thanks for your attention or for your questions.
Thank you very much, Alain. I guess there are a couple of questions in the chat, or how does it look, Florent?
Yeah, we do have 1 question regarding the testings. Did we consider also complex environments, or did we limit the work to specific scenarios as you present? Did we, for instance, work with many pedestrians around the vehicle and so on?
Okay, you know, that's a very good question. Of course, we could make tests with many pedestrians, with complex environments, but you know, now EuroNCAP and regulation are going step by step. So the first step is simple scenarios with 1 target, pedestrian or car or bicycle. So we focused on yes, more simple scenario to have the best chance to be included in regulation or EuroNCAP. But I think it's a good idea to test Brave anticipation in many more complex scenario.
So that brings me to my questions. Would be what would be the next steps? What could be an extension of the work that we have done in Brave? What are the needed steps to further develop these predictive systems and to validate them?
Yes, good question. Thank you. Of course, we could work with other targets, you know, I don't know the words, trottinette.
Scooters and yeah.
Scooters, electric
yes, scooters, power two wheels, individual small mobility, new tools. So, and of course, yes, all vulnerables users, all the people, two-person working together, and so on. We hope also to go further after Brave with maybe suppliers. We're sure that suppliers are developing anticipation system, predictive systems. So we hope to perceive such tests and work.
Okay, thanks, Alain. I think we are done with questions so far. I can give you back the floor, Ingrid.
Yes, I think there were a couple of questions to Jan as well that we skipped when to give Alain room for
I've seen 2 questions in the chat that I have answered. I don't know if there are any others that I missed during the presentation.
Okay, could you just summarize what the question was and what you answered in case somebody has missed the chat?
Okay. The first question was if we tested in the simulator the reaction time of the people, like from the beginning of the warning until they reacted and sort of took control over the vehicle. And the answer is that we had planned to test this, but since we couldn't use the simulator now due to the lockdown, we did the online survey. And yeah, so we don't have these results, but it's a correct remark since we also wanted to do this actually. And the second question was how we measured acceptance of both the entire system and just the HMI, or let's say, how did we try to do that? And the answer is that we used in both cases the original items without hampering with the items, and it wrote an instruction in the beginning of the questionnaire where we said with respect to what these items should be answered. So, for example, in the van der Laan questionnaire, it's like word pairs. It's a semantic differential, but like useful or useless. And so we said, like, is the interaction concept useful or useless, or is the overall driving system useful or useless? I don't know if it worked, because as we've seen, the results are really, really similar, almost identical. It doesn't mean that that didn't work, because maybe like let's say one evaluation or mental idea of the participants is reflecting on the other. Maybe the idea of the driving system is reflecting on how they see the interaction, or maybe the interaction is reflecting on how they see the entire system. Can't say that for sure, but it's definitely interesting to see that the answers are quite similar. How similar at item level, I still have to check. Now I just have the result of the main scale.
Okay, thanks. So continue to ask questions in the chat because we still have some time to go. I think that once we now have heard so many or these different ideas of, oh, I see that George has raised your hand. I'll give you the chance to say something then, George.
Yes, thank you very much, Ingrid. I managed actually to follow the final event from the start till the end. So thank you very much for this very informative session that you have prepared, which I think you have provided a lot of information on what has happened during the last 3 or 4 years in Brave project. Just I mean, a couple of observations from my side. I think that the HMI, it's one of the fundamental components that actually is dealt in many European projects. I mean, not only, of course, in Brave or Interact or Trust Vehicle, which are the sister projects, since they are funding under the same core topic, but also that other projects like, you know very well, Others and Me, Automate and VIDAS, they have dealt similarly, I mean, with this aspect. And I would really encourage you, even I know that the project is going to the end, but I think it's worth checking, I mean, what has happened also on these projects. Another point that I have in my notes is regarding the external HMI. If I'm not mistaken, I saw that the eye contact actually plays an important role. I mean, for the vehicle actually to identify if the pedestrian actually is going to cross the road or not. I don't know if you, I mean, have explored also the option that, for instance, the pedestrian wear sunglasses. So it means that the sensors might not be in 100% position actually to identify or to check where actually the eyes of the pedestrians are looking at. And especially, I know that the current technology of some sensors actually, especially if there are some specific sunglasses, they cannot actually check the movement of the eyes. And also a similar question, comment actually about the internal HMI. Are you also looking the eye status of the driver, or actually the sensors installed in vehicle? They're just actually looking at the movement, or for instance, if the driver holds a mobile phone, so it means that the driver actually is distracted. And last point from my side, and then I'll give the floor to you. Actually, please keep us informed on further development on Euro NCAP and regulatory working groups. I know that the project, of course, is going to the end, but I see that work and activities on this aspect are still ongoing, and it would be really important actually to showcase, even after the end date of the project, I mean, how the results and the achievement of EU funded projects actually have been taken into account in these regulatory bodies. So these are the observations from my side. Thank you again very much for this very informative session.
Thank you, George, and thanks for these useful and interesting observations and questions. I guess we take them one by one. Yes, we will look into the other projects. We have already looked and worked a bit together, as we said in the beginning, but we'll take another review. Then I see that Miguel Angel, you have raised your hand, and I guess that you are prepared to answer at least one of these questions.
Sure, that's my intention, to give the a response to a very interesting question regarding the analysis of the eye direction of the pedestrian. Actually, the system for anticipating pedestrian intentions, I'm not talking about the HMI, okay, internally, I'm talking about the external thing, looking at the pedestrians outside of the car. The system doesn't look for the eyes because it's practically impossible given the resolution of the cameras installed on board the car. So what we do is to look at the face. It's a very practical approach. We detect the face, the entire face. So even if you have glasses, you still detect the face. So after we detect the face using deep learning techniques, we compare the surface of the face with the rest of the body. We have detected the entire body. We know where the shoulders are, the knees, and so on, using an open pose approach. So we compare the surface of the face with the body, and based on that, we infer and we decide if we believe that the face is looking forward. I mean, if the face is looking toward oncoming traffic. Given after a given threshold, we consider that yes, the pedestrian is looking at oncoming traffic, and based on that, we decide, okay, if the pedestrian is standing at the curb, is looking at oncoming traffic, we assume is looking at the driver, right? So this is how the system works. That's the rationale. So it doesn't depend on the eyes, right? Let me remark and to add to this response that the decision to anticipate the pedestrian action, the pedestrian intention, does not rely only on the pedestrian looking at the driver, because we also analyze the entire body language. So even if the pedestrian is not looking at oncoming traffic at all, but it starts to move his or her leg as an initial movement to start stepping onto the road, the system also anticipates this situation. So it's body language plus gaze direction, but the gaze direction is the most clear indication, the most clear evidence of the pedestrian intention to cross. That, I repeat, it doesn't depend on eyes detection because we don't do eyes detection. It's kind of impossible at such distance. That's for the external detection of pedestrian. Maybe my colleagues want to answer for the HMI, but if you allow me, given that we have also developed a driver monitoring system based on computer vision, in this case, it's totally agree. If the driver has dark sunglasses, the system doesn't work the same way. We lose part of the functionality. For example, we can still know if the driver is looking at front traffic because it depends on head direction, not the eyes. If he's looking at the side mirror or the cell phone, but we know nothing about attention or drowsiness. I mean, if the driver is falling asleep, we have no idea to know because we need to see the eyes. And in such a situation, as pointed out by Georgios, we don't see the eyes. So yes, for the internal HMI, for the driver monitoring system, and the connection with the internal HMI, it's a problem. It's for any car maker, not only for us. But for the external detection of pedestrian, it's not a problem at all. Sunglasses are not a problem, or even a cap or whatever, it's not a problem.
Jan, would you like to add to the status of the driver detection?
No, I think Miguel Angel has said everything. Just don't think there's anything to add. Very good answer.
Good. Yeah, and I think it is interesting to see also that you recommend us to get back to you on George, on the working groups, how they are doing. And I think this is actually pretty cool that the project will live on in the recommendations. And the reason for us having the recommendations in or this work packaging is partly, as I said in the beginning, that we really think if there are systems that do predict and anticipate and that can help to increase the comfort and the acceptance, then it should be possible to recognize those so that they are encouraged to be on the market. So we will do our best to bring that to the attention of the working groups, the standardization bodies, and the Euro NCAP.
And I think, Ingrid, that would be also good feedback also to the SICAM partnership. I mean, in the discussions that you have in the different working groups.
Yeah. Yes. Just making a note of that. That is a valid comment. One more question from my side, given the discussion we have had here, and now I'm getting back to the first presentation we had today, Bernard, with with what you have heard now and the surveys that we did, how did you receive any ideas from the surveys how acceptance and trust in level 3 vehicles could be further improved? Do you think we have addressed that by the items that we have presented today?
Yes, from my side, I would think that, well, based on the results we saw in our surveys, that we could have two strategies to improve trust and acceptance. Most we discussed now are the focus on eHMIs and the communication and improvement of interaction with the road users. And at the current point, we have to communicate and also to demonstrate how these eHMIs work and to give road users a good feeling about how to interact with these CACs, as I said, and that they can, well, start building trust and in the reliability of these cars. As you see in the mentees, we also here in our group where a lot of technicians are working, we are still not rely on these SAE levels. And how should common road users think about that?
Mm. And I think that thanks for that answer, because that gives us an opportunity also to introduce two partners that have not presented today. We have among our partners the AMCS, which is the automobile club, I believe, in Slovenia, and ACOSA or RACC, which is in Catalonia. And these two partners, they work with driving education. They have a large membership, and that is one way we are trying to use the findings from the BRAVE project to communicate, to see how this can be, the results and the findings can be further used in, for example, enhancing driving programs, and to communicate through the large membership that these two partners constitute. And I think that is actually good examples of exploitation of the results that we will take into account. Because as you said, we are technology people, or we are at least involved in the subject as such, we who speak here today, and we still are not completely convinced. Good. Yeah, are there any more questions, Florent, you think we should address?
I think we have some questions, but from Miguel Angel, but I think everything's is answered directly on the chat. Maybe Miguel Angel, if you want to summarize a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Let me rescue one question that I have found very interesting, dealing with the behavior of pedestrians. The question says something like, what about pedestrians taking advantage of the automated vehicle signaling, knowing that the vehicle will yield to them in a safe way? So do you think pedestrians will misbehave and will cross the street in a dangerous way? Yeah, I'm sure many young and not so young people will do. So this will require a lot of education. It will require that we all get used to it. At the beginning, if there are only a few automated vehicles, for sure this will happen. Many people will take advantage of autonomous vehicles, knowing that they will be respected, that it will not depend on a human decision. Then as the penetration rate increases, I'm sure this behavior will decrease. And why not, considering some low enforcement in order to bring things to a correct behavior quicker. Let's bring in mind that autonomous vehicles have cameras. So this is quite a persuasive measure. You can be recorded if you misbehave, something like that. I mean, yeah, we enter into legal issues that are very complex, but yeah, I believe this question triggers a very interesting debate about how will interaction between automated vehicles and pedestrians will be in practice as soon as the first one will be deployed effectively. So that's my understanding. There will be a lot of people taking advantage, but we will get used to it with time. So there was another question dealing with accuracy. I partially dealt with in the presentation. Let me remark the following. Accuracy and detection delay is the binomial that cannot be separated. If you want to be more accurate in detecting a lane change, for example, then it takes more time. The detection delay will decrease, it will worsen. If you want to be quicker, accuracy will worsen. So the quick answer is that the Brave lane change prediction system is, for the same accuracy, 85% that I presented in the slides, is much quicker than humans. And conversely, for the same detection delay, Brave prediction system is much more accurate than humans. So the point in between where you want to work is a decision for car makers. The results that I presented were for the same accuracy level of 85%. This is single frame accuracy. I mean, you can make many decisions at this frame, the next one, the next one. If you consider all frames in an individual basis, it's 85%. Of course, after a few frames, any driver, any human driver or any artificial intelligence system realizes there is a car changing lane, right? I don't know if you understand what I mean, but normally in machine learning, artificial intelligence, science, this is the way results are presented. They are presented in single frame, all right? So I think these two questions are maybe one of the two most relevant ones I have found in the chat. I have tried to provide an answer to all of them. If some of the persons asking questions about my presentation want to put it forward now, it's a good moment to do because we still have some minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we got a good sort of sequel of your question here. There's of your explanations here, Miguel Angel, because there is somebody asking if there will be a continuation project, a Brave 2. I guess one thing that we have discussed and is what are the next challenges if we think about this is level 3 and there are big discussions about level 4 as well. For example, Jan, do you see any particular challenges if we would think about level 4 automation, which I think is one of the scopes that the Commission, European Commission, wants to address in Horizon Europe?
Yeah, regarding the interior, I think when we get to level 4 or even level 5, but I think that, so in general, there is a, at least in our perspective and the work that we're doing, a switch from, so to say, a very intense focus on interaction with the car's elements, HMI design, to more or less interior design. So I think the more the vehicle is autonomous and the driver is actually not even driving anymore, the vehicle becomes, the vehicle interior becomes a sort of landscape that we need to design to help work, sleep, do any other activities, it sort of also switches from a bit to sort of infotainment and away from these designs that are focused on keeping the driver in the loop or getting them back at least into the driving loop as fast as possible for us to be either a driver or fallback solution.
Okay. Yeah, well, as we said, you can continue to ask in the chat questions. I think it is otherwise time to wrap up this session, and I have a very short summary I would like to share with you, and let me just remember to share my screen. Yes. So I think what you have seen here is that we have the questions that we set out to ask to answer about factors that influence the adoption and how we could increase that by looking at the gaps. We have presented our findings in this, and that among those are that the acceptance is positive to these type of automation automated vehicles, level 3, but maybe not so widespread. There is a lack of trust. And we also found in our surveys that there are differences between the different road user groups and where people live. That anyway, the transparency of the automation status is important. It is important to those inside the car, the driver typically, and the other road users. And I think we have tried to address the transparency by looking at our interior HMI concepts and the exterior ones as well. And we have tried to develop then solutions, or at least concepts for and recommendations for solutions that could help overcome the gaps. The interior HMI guidelines and concepts, exterior HMI guidelines as well, driver monitoring, driver warning strategies, and a system for predicting and anticipating other road users' intentions so that we could react faster and better with an automated vehicle. And that, as if you may remember from the first presentation, that was one of the concerns, the main concern actually, that if there was an unexpected or emergency event, that the vehicle would not be able to react. So that is very important to address that. A creation of a data set so that it can be used for prediction evaluations, not just or intention prediction, not just to look at trajectories, but also to understand the intention of the other road users. That has been developed. And then these systems that we have discussed as well, that are neural network based for both VRU and other road user detection and prediction. And then we were thinking of how to make this come to the market, how to not only have a nice research project, but what is the way to get this on the road one day. And the mechanism for that we have worked on is to use the Euro NCAP consumer information testing regulatory working groups, that they have adequate testing protocols that would recognize these types of systems. So there are some recommendations for testing that would, and use cases that we think should be taken into account by these organizations, and that we are presenting to them, and that we will continue to present also after the project ends. So with that, if there are any additional Qs and Qs, we can try to give the As. I don't think there are any additional questions. Do you see any, Florent?
No, I don't. I think we are set, and you still have my email, and I will send the presentation slides and recording. So just reply back if you want to ask a specific question to one of the presenter. We will be able to forward your question to the specific person.
Yes. So with that, I think what is left is to thank you all for participating in our final event. It has been a pleasure to interact with you. I would like to thank my colleagues in the project. It is a pleasure to coordinate a project with so motivated and skilled colleagues from these organizations, all of our partners. And I would like to thank you all for your making this event, and you participants as well. Thank you so much, and let's continue to work together on enhancing the acceptance, and be brave. Thank you.